Okay, so it's one guy, T and D, and I'm doing a video on how I world build. I've been watching a lot of videos recently from Barker and Tim about their sort of creative process, how they come up with ideas, and I thought I'd do I'd add a little bit to what they have to say. So the way I tend to do things is I take my time. So when I want to make a new campaign world, um, I'll just come up with something that I like the sound of, just a single sentence. So for my world, I came up with sort of Victorian era D&D, and then I left it, didn't write anything more. And then for the rest of that week, all I did was go on the internet, watch TV, just all things related to the Victorian era, and just did that for a week. Didn't write anything, just let all those ideas start building up in my head until they were ready to come out. And then after a week, I oh shit, whoops, need to mute that. And then I started to write down a few simple things just to sort of get some general things set in stone, like the kind of themes that I want to have in my campaigns. So I went with sort of the classism and inequalities between people and different races. I wanted that to sort of be definitely seen. So maybe elves are the sort of nobility, and everything else is the people that work in the factories and the workhouses that run all the trains and all sorts, all things like that. I wanted the sort of the gap between the very rich and the very poor to be very large, but also allowing a bit of freedom in between for the very rare cases, such as the adventurers or someone who's just come into a lot of money somehow, but still not as rich as everyone else. And then obviously it's D&D related, so I need to also think about how the races fit in. So I wrote a single sentence, maybe two sentences, just talking about how that one particular race fits in. You really need to limit yourself. Otherwise, you can delve too deep down the rabbit hole of dwarves and just get stagnated and burn out all of your creative energies that you've got. So write one sentence about dwarves, write another sentence about elves, something nice and general with something a bit different between them. But you don't want to go too in depth just yet. You want to leave a lot of your world building to actually playing the game. So, and I thought I need to sort of start thinking about running games very soon. Otherwise, I mean, what's the point of spending a while creating a world if you're not going to run games and have fun with people? So I thought I need a place where I can sort of focus in a lot of my energy, such as a city, perhaps. Think of some factions which can be used outside the city later on. Think of companies that will, railway companies that can spread out through the land. Things very general that are within the city but can be used elsewhere. So as you flesh them out in your games, you can then, where if you change locations, have that come in and join the new stuff you write. It's very much about taking a nice, easy, small chunk, doing that, moving on to the next thing, and never spending too much time doing one thing. Otherwise, you can get sort of world builders disease where you can, really go into the geography, say, and get everything super realistic with Hadley cells and tectonic plate movements and magma flow and all sorts of things like that, which if you like it, sure, but it's not as important as the sort of the living, breathing part of the world, the people, the places that you see, the factions that you interact with. So, what I did then was I sort of had a look at some pictures online and downloaded a few of them into a folder. And immediately things just jumped out of me, thinking, that's cool, I want that. Let me just share my screen here. Let's go for this. Right. Bear with me 1 second. I'm still fairly new to this. So I looked at this steampunk knight, and he just looks awesome. So I thought about a faction which would sort of take that look of steel and almost robotic kind of. You'd never see their face, just their eyes. And went about creating a faction called the Steam Guard, which are a faction which protect the king in the city. So, I mean, this picture's taken a lot of inspiration from the Horse Guard from Great Britain. They have that sort of red plumage coming from their helmets, and I thought, let's make this a bit more steampunk. So I gave them a boiler and a steam thrower, sort of like a flamethrower but with more steam. I thought that is some interesting stuff which they can, although they're working for the good of the kingdom, protecting the king. I mean, they could oppose players. There's a lot you can do with your factions. I don't like to make them overly good or overly bad. I like the sort of in between, so some people can think of them as bad, like maybe criminals think, oh, these guys are horrible, they just kill you without a moment's notice. Or the average person might think, oh, these guys are great, they sort of don't take any shit, they just deal with the issue at hand, get it done. So I spent some time during my research gathering up these images and just had this imagery coming into my head without any writing, without any sort of anything at all that involved a lot of work. I was just looking at pictures and coming up with ideas in my head. I mean, if they're good, they stay there, and you can write them down. And if you might forget them, you can just look at the image again, and it'll probably, somewhere in your brain, it'll come up again. I'm drinking some Earl Grey right now. I mean, I suggest everyone do this. Collect art which you like the look of, like these cityscapes. I mean, just look at that sort of imagery that you can get from this, what my city might actually look like, without having to draw yourself or write a lot of things down. You can think, I love this, let's just have that. There's a lot you can do with just a single picture. Like, if I zoom in, it's probably not very clear, but like these these guys on the rooftops, are they part of a criminal organization? Are they the Steam God? Are they searching for someone that tried to assassinate the king? Are they following someone? Or are they something more sinister? There's so much you can do just by looking at pictures and thinking. Right, so let me see. So after I sort of looked through all of these pictures, and spent a week or two just not really writing anything down and just thinking about things. After a week or two, my sort of brain was ready to explode, and I just had to write something down. So I thought, this is D&D related. Let's write about how the races of D&D actually fit within this world. So I wrote down the list of the main ones from the player's handbook, and a few extras. And I thought, all right, how do humans come into this? They're usually the sort of the norm, the sort of the basic, boring type. So I've somewhat kept with that as people are used to it. I mean, you can recycle a lot of ideas. You don't have to have everything unique. I mean, I like cliches. I like tropes. They're not bad things. So just write down a sentence about humans. You know, they're found in every social class. They, they like to drink after they come home from the factories. It's, they're just average people. You think about, then go on to another race. Don't settle down and write 2 pages about humans, in every situation you can think of. Just keep on moving. You can always come back and add later once you've already set something down. Yeah. So elves. I mean, the king in my world, at least part of it, is an elf. So how does a country react to having a ruler for maybe a few hundred years? It's that's outliving a lot of its citizens. And then I just went through all of the races and wrote a sentence about them. And then I came to races where I wasn't really sure if I wanted them, whether they actually sort of fit within the world. I came across tieflings. They're, interesting, but I don't think they really fit within the world. Sort of that demonic presence wasn't really the sort of thing I was going for. I mean, magic is definitely important and within the world, but that sort of cosmology with gods and demons and devils wasn't too important to me. I was more interested in the interactions between people and people rather than people and the divine. I think it's very relatable that way. So I came up with some interesting takes on a few races. I mean, orcs, for in my world, they're a slave race. Usually, they're the barbarians of the north, kind of evil bad guys. But in mine, they're sort of told to go down coal mines and just keep on shoveling out coal until they die. I mean, maybe they've had revolts in the past where they tried to break free and it's failed, and they're so, harshed even more, punished even more harshly than before. And maybe the half orcs, which look a bit like them, sort of shunned almost, hated by their orc relatives because they've, through the luck of their birth, have broken free from the chains, broken free from their torment. And maybe the half orcs are shunned by the rest of the other races. Maybe they see them too much like orcs, but they've been born sort of apart from that slave underclass, that they're still considered by law a human or an elf, an equal to them, but society may not treat them that way. So, I mean, I went a little bit too far with that orc and half orc lore, but that's fine. I mean, you move on to something else straight after. It's important not to stick with one thing too long. Even if you really like what you're writing, just write down a few things, move on, come back to it, so you don't stay on that thing forever. Otherwise, you will get bored and almost sick of your own thing, and you'll sort of forget all of your other ideas that you've come up with. Well, so let's show off my, well, at least some of my map. It's fairly important to have a map, I think. You get a good idea of where everyone's in the world. Places that are being discovered, places that you think might be more hidden. You don't want to sort of reveal everything straight away. I mean, once it gets up, head on Photoshop. Let me just share my screen again. Nope, that's not worked. Whoops. Share this. Right. So this is where I think most of my one-shots and campaigns are going to be sort of played in. I make a new layer here. The city that I want to that I've been creating and want to actually do some gaming in is placed here in a sort of strategic area, a land bridge across. And this is only a tiny portion of the world that I've actually thought about in great detail. Zoom out. You've got this sort of continent which has a bit more discovery to it in the world. Places like the sort of Dragon's Breath are islands down here. Could be perhaps where Dragonborn are from, where they originated from. And there's not a lot of detail on this map, but I can start to think about where I want to place mountains. But I'm not a good mapper, but I've made do. So if you want to check out how to do maps, get Be a Better Campaign Master on Absolute Tabletop, and go check out Nate's channel from on WASD 20. He has some really cool videos on mapping. So go check those out. But one thing that I thought about when I was building my world was a lot of the themes from the Victorian era are sort of colonialism and exploration. So, I mean, the British Empire spread throughout the world, like India and Africa, especially, and Australia and New Zealand and Canada and places like that. So I thought maybe the world isn't totally explored yet. Maybe that's something the players can explore through one-shots or long campaigns. So I made another continent which is somewhat bigger. I thought, why hasn't this been explored? What's stopping people from getting across this ocean? Perhaps this ocean is filled with a load of sea monsters, krakens, aboleths, merfolk that are stopping people from sailing across. And the recent invention of airships in the world is allowing people to actually cross these oceans in relative safety. There's a lot you can explore with discovering new civilizations, new peoples, new creatures, new landscapes. It's interesting sort of historically, and I think you can, with your players, explore the world together, which is another thing which really helps out world building, is only doing so much that you can run a game in, and then run games and world build with your players, because other people have awesome, cool ideas as well. I was speaking with Chad today, and we came up with an awesome thing which I won't quite reveal yet. I think I want it to be somewhat secret until we actually play a game with a race of people which have been in D&D before, but I think my take was a little bit different. So just speaking with someone else about the world, having someone you can talk to is really important for creativity. Like bouncing that idea off somebody, does that sound cool to you? Just throw them out. If you can find someone that you're like comfortable talking to, and you can sort of, you don't mind them sort of shooting down your idea, but then coming up with something even more awesome with you. It's really important to have that. There's only so much you can do by yourself. Awful kraken over my work. So I guess don't know if anyone's actually watching. To sort of sum up my my ideas, would be spend some time doing research on history and fiction, and then sort of just start throwing ideas onto a large piece of paper, and then leave it for a bit, and then come back and see if you can connect those ideas. Think of ways, like with the orcs and half orcs and the other races, how those initial ideas for those races connect. It's I mean, you can get a world that you can play in within sort of a week or two, maybe even a week, just coming up with small ideas that you can build upon slowly and gradually. Right. Don't think anybody is watching just yet. It's not a great time to stream for the US people. It's the middle of the day. I'm sure people are doing cool things. So, I mean, if you've got any questions, post them down in the comments below. So this was a bit of a ramble. None of it probably made sense, but I guess it's my style. I don't really know what I'm talking about, and I'm just here drinking tea and yeah, rambling. And if you're interested in, if the world sort of interests you at all, just ask any questions and keep an eye out for one shots, which I'll be posting probably. I might do one next week or the week after. We shall see. Yeah, so if you liked what I had to say here, if you got anything you can add, or maybe you think I'm wrong, yeah, tell me why. It's always great to hear from people, and I'm fairly new, so I mean, seeing if I'm doing anything wrong, where I can improve upon is always great. So feedback is a good thing, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. So thanks for watching this if you do, and I will see you again next time. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.